Potentially a Talia Rise handshake now is where my head goes, Grapes, with what these mid laners really prioritize, especially HongQ for JDG.
See the Adazir taken away here. HongQ historically very good on this champion, 28-13 overall on the Emperor of Shurima. 0-3 on it though, this season specifically, at least throughout Split 1 and the playoffs that have already taken place. That Varus has been one of Viper's most played champions. Not surprised to see that one taken away as well, and kind of fitting the mold of Viper being much more excited and much more willing to play for the team, play something a little bit more utility oriented like the Varus or even the Ashes and the Sivers of the world.
Yeah, and Bessa taken away now. Of course, we are still on 16-3, so Ambassa jungle a little bit stronger than where she was on 16-4, where a lot of the other regions had their playoffs. Curious, though, if Ambassa being taken out of the pool, again, Sion priority as Rumble gets banned. When and where do we see Sion in this series? I think that Sion has really been pushed down the totem pole in terms of what's prioritized. But still, I think it could be a really big pick as we go throughout this. Did tease the Rise to Leah trade. That handshake coming in. Knight prioritizing that Rise as that's first pick for himself.
His most played champion of the year. And as you also mentioned, a takeaway from HongQ, but he's not going to be too upset given that this Talia is available. We've seen it be paired alongside the Vi. BLG no better than to leave that unbanned against JunJia, so it will not be available for him. So other options are still on the table here for the jungler of JD Gaming. They see if they want to lock that in. Now it is Jarvan going to be paired alongside the Talia.
All right, so not looking for a Pantheon, which is a really good pairing with Talia. Instead, I think the Jarvan gives you the ability to kind of play into the Rise with that Cataclysm, as you know that Rise is going to be immobile with that. Definitely dissuades Viper from taking the mobile AD carry with it as well. Now, as Shun's going to look for an answer, he was hovering some of the junglers, but looks like that Nico could be power picked by On, as he is really proven that he is a solid mage player. I think this split... you know, his ability to play Nico, Karma, even Elise is definitely always something that On has kept in his back pocket. And going into Vampire, I think Vampire has definitely proven he can play Nico to high level too. So really prioritizing that extra lockdown and taking away that combo from a potential Cataclysm as well.
I mean, we saw that clip that we showed in the pre-show of it was Vampire actually who landed that ultimate, but you can see just how powerful this champion is once you get into some of these later game team fights, which JDG have been very accustomed to doing throughout their 5-game series so far in the playoffs. Shun gonna get his hands on Xin Zhao, his most played champion of 2026, in a very powerful opening here for Bilibili Gaming in game 1.
Yeah, of course we are on 16-3. Let me check real quick to see if Xin has his buffs yet. Yes, he does. Okay, he has the attack speed buff for this one. That's a big one. I think Xin getting buffed, he really has been a big stat checker. Being able to press R, that Crescent Guard, can definitely help you get out of a couple potential Talia combos that might come in. Not to mention interrupting a Flag and Drag, depending on that interaction with Jarvan. So, Shun going to be able to take a little bit of flexibility defense for himself, but also a big pick that can go in, brawl in the front line to round out that first phase of draft. Of course, Nico showing. Renekton showing for JDG as Xiaoxu picked up a specialist champion for himself. I expect top lane bans to protect the Renekton. Probably a couple support or bot lane bans to protect that Nico already showing here for BLG.
And by no surprise, we see the Gnar taken away. Normally a handshake, but also just a champion that Bin has had a ton of history and experience on throughout his career. You know, he's always known for playing the carries. He has, you know, maybe stepped back and been willing to play more defensive, more weak side things as of late. I mean, helps that you have Knight and Viper as carries on your team, but could see something like a Sion get locked in for them as well. On the other side, supports definitely make sense to ban away for BLG. The Lulu ban suggests that maybe that they're expecting a hard carry from Gala in the bottom lane.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised it wasn't Karma first, as Karma is, I would say, the more accepted answer in the Nico, as well as global strength perceived to be higher than Lulu. But as you hinted, Grapes, you know, could be dissuading Gala from taking one of those big carries, or also On and Viper could be saving that Lulu for themselves for later. Viper, a very, very good Aphelios player himself. Lulu, a good pairing with that later on, so maybe reserving that pairing. removing that Ashe. They don't want to face any Ashe Seraphine against the Nico. However, that does leave up the Karma, where, again, I feel like teams have the most experience playing Karma in the Nico, as well as vice versa. Definitely sets up for a potential Ezreal here, which Gala might want, which I'd be curious if Viper might be willing to take something like a Kai'Sa showing this early. It does give you a way to play out a Cataclysm, and also it's a way to play into Ezreal. That said, Kai'Sa, Nico going into Karma Ezreal could be a very risky lane. So if Viper does want to go for something like Yunara, at least when you transcend, you have the ability to get out of a few of the skill shots that JDG's bot lane could send at you, as well as that Cataclysm.
Just a little bit of extra safety, making sure that you're not completely boxed out if you have all these easy to hit point and click lockdown abilities, like the Cataclysm, even, the stun from a Renekton. Waiting for this final pick to round out BLG's composition alongside the Yunara. Already a lot of team fighting strength, and they're going to add to that here with a Kennen to go into Xiaoxu's Renekton. Bin going to have his work cut out for him, I should say.
Really curious now if we see Vampire opt for Exhaust this game, or any ability to exhaust Kennen, because there isn't a way to get Kennen out of the fight. And playing Kennen into an Enchantress, it's the ability to kind of one-shot what JDG has. So between Nico and Kennen and Viper being able to transcend oh god, I'm blanking on the item, and now I'm stuck, Grapes. So I just get to be weird here on the cast.
The Fiend Hunter bolts?
Yes, the Feed Hunter. I think the ability for BLG to press R with that item, with Yunara, with Kennen, with Nico, it's a shotgun composition they're going to run. And try and use Xin plus Ryze to be a strong mid-jungle duo to patch it up, make sure they can find the angles with, hopefully, the lane priority they're able to get from their draft, to set up those big angles to make sure that the Pop Blossoms and Kennen can really make for an explosive opening fight. If those fights aren't explosive early on for JDG, I think there's a lot more stock standard team composition, and if you don't have a clean engage in a Karma Ezreal, we have seen what these top tier AD carries can do on this combo to really carry out long fights. We'll see if Gala and Vampire are up to the task if BLG can't find clean executions in these fights.
Yeah, a lot of onus on, I guess, both of the bottom laners, really, to play safe. Whichever one of these AD carries dies first, it's going to have their team in a pretty sticky situation for the duration of these later game team fights. And, Gala and Viper, two historically fantastic AD carries that can definitely take their team to the next level if they are able to perform at their peak. There were a lot of calls for Gala to maybe get some all-pro votes. He didn't end up ending up on any of the main broadcast top 3. Viper ended up being second. Maybe he wants to prove that that was a bit of a mistake as we get ourselves ready for the upper bracket finals here in Suzhou between JDG and Bilibili.
All right, Grapes. I'm excited to dive into the series. I think that BLG have really yet to be tested in terms of their own run through the bracket. Going up against JDG, a team that they were not able to topple in the regular season, should be a big test for BLG, where we can see, A, if they can qualify for first stand in grand finals, but also, B, can they take down the team that did get the best of them twice in the regular season?
Yeah, BLG, the higher perceived team in terms of strength, with JDG. Says ball don't lie. They've won, of course, every single time they faced off against each other here in 2026, and so they feel like they shouldn't be the underdogs at all, and they're going to feel confident specifically here in the bottom lane. A little bit of extra pushing power here for this Ezreal Karma. Stock standard in terms of your expectations for this level 1, as they will be able to get to that level 2 threshold a little bit earlier, while also chunking on down to about 300 HP.
And that's kind of why I was surprised that Karma wasn't banned out against the Nico, because Karma, a lot of Nico lanes just go the way of Nico, because your ability to kind of poke out, put out damage can't be matched by engage supports or a lot of the other Enchantress supports. Karma has the best laning phase, and overall I'd say the most balanced power curve out of all the Enchantress supports, because she has the most strength early, given the mantra and the ability to throw out these big Qs or drop a big shield. So we're seeing BLG's bot lane struggle a bit with that early. Again, this was the choice they made, banning out stuff like the Lulu and letting the Karma through, where once the Nico's locked in, you kind of expect to see Karma if it's not taken away, as it's a common answer a lot of teams are willing to play. And Yeah, Gala Vampire off to a good start in the spot lane, thanks to the fact that they got access to a pick that does play well in the Nico.
And again, kind of the story of how these bot lanes have interacted, at least, you know, during the playoffs. A lot of lane dominance here for Gala and Vampire.
Shun
it allows here for JunJia to go for an invade onto the blue buff of Shun. Both flashes being utilized by him and Vampire, and Shun just has no place to go. That is first blood here for JDG. What a way for them to kick off this game.
That is JDG cashing out on the bot lane priority they picked up in the draft with the Karma, too. They sent Viper and On back on their own respective early resets early on to this game. Jarvan has the faster clear compared to the Xin Zhao early, so JunJia, between the bot lane priority and his speedier clear, able to get up in the face of Shun, steals away the blue buff, takes that priority bot crab, and BLG already behind early in a comp where I really feel like if they don't have the damage to make sure that the entrances they have into these fights are big, if they're not having a big advantage in the fight early on against JDG, the long fight's very much going to benefit or prefer JDG as this game goes on.
Especially if, you know, this bot lane's able to keep getting going. Meanwhile, on the top side, see that Xiaoxu might have taken a bit of an ill-fated TP as Shun is waiting for him as soon as he arrives. There's a 3-talent strike. Immediately channeled the stun as well from Bin. And Xiaoxu just teleports straight into taking almost the entirety of his HP.
That was a bit of a gift, giving over to Bin. And giving over gifts to Bin in the lane phase, that's a mistake a lot of players have made that have not gone well for them throughout the years.
I have beef. For LPL top laners specifically, don't TP to the minions. It's an 8-second channel. You can teleport to the tower, and it takes you 2 extra seconds, and it's not worth it. I feel like I've seen so many examples in the playoffs where now Bin is going to be able to harass Xiaoxu for free, and now he doesn't even have a teleport to get back, and he's going to lose the wave anyway. So that's my little top lane rant. Just teleport to the tower in your first 5 minutes.
He's been doing his best to drag aggro on the creeps to make sure that wave kind of shoves back into him. Going to choose to delete it, get a free base for himself. Bin not going to have to burn the TP of his own to get back into this lane. So that cannon counter pick already paying off thanks to a pretty big mistake from Xiaoxu early on. Again, I feel like this is a really big series for Xiaoxu. Could be a potential coming out party for him as a big name top laner in the LPL. Because, again, I think his performance very much warrants him in the conversation with 369, Flandre, and Bin. But he doesn't have the pedigree, doesn't have the years behind his name to really break into that conversation quite yet. So a win today, I think, would be a lot in his favor.
JunJia right back to scene of the crime where he picked up first blood. He hits level 6 after stealing the Grop and has the Cataclysm available. However, he gets rooted up, and now Knight has arrived with the Realm Warp. HongQ in with the Weaver's Wall, but it might just be a little bit too late. JunJia is able to escape with less than 100 HP, and JD Gaming able to keep everybody alive.
Wow, I'm really surprised that JunJia didn't rip the Cataclysm there. Just to try and help on his way out. That might have been able to set up, too, for a better Talia combo. BLG, though, being first to really interact with the play between Knight being here earlier and just the play happening on their side of the map. JunJia not able to get more than just the Gromp. However, didn't lose his flash and cements his lead further over Shun as JunJia did hit 6 very early on, given the camps he's already taken away from the Xin Zhao.
Yeah, hit 6 before his top laner. That's how you know you're doing pretty good in the jungle. Those 2 steals of enemy camps that JunJia was taking the majority of in terms of clear time definitely helps.
Yeah, also beat 6 before having the 3rd crab of the game spawn. So, you know, no ability to throw the game at the crab, which our LPL teams have really enjoyed doing so far this playoff.
It's not just the LPL. It's basically every
has been global.
Has been doing
this.
Yeah. At least we know it's not just crazy here in our game. There's other areas that are also doing the crazy.
Not even just crazy in Blabber's game, just everyone.
Yeah, the Blabbers Crabbers really making their way across the globe. Thankfully, not going to matter too much for either of those sides. It's just going to be teams splitting the sides of the map. BLG, of course, with that top push, going to be able to have Shun come in there, take away some of JunJia's jungle, and get back into the game at least a little bit.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see if JunJia can punish the respawn camps on Shun's bot side, because that would really cement his lead in this matchup, as Bin doing more work to cement his lead. Did opt for the Conqueror this game on the Kennen and is going for the Hextech Gunblade early on. The Vamp early on, too, to make sure he can kind of match the sustain of the Renekton. Of course, with Kennedy, do have some build options. The Gunblade gonna set up, I think, for the best laning phase possible for Bin.
Yeah, we've seen mostly Gunblade builds here for Kennen here on this recent patch. Sometimes the Proto Belt added on top of it. I'm still trying to think of the best way to, the best name for that build. The Hextech squared, something like that. Hextech. We'll come up with that. We'll workshop it.
Kennen just ratted in and stole all of Heimerdinger's tech, you know?
Yeah, just build Hextech everything. He's Heimerdinger's most valued customer. Hey, Yordle's got to stick together in these troubling times in the economy in Runeterra.
Yeah, I mean, no inflation if you just steal from Heimerdinger's workshop, right?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a TV show where that happened. We get some. Looks like it's working. The items are working so far. Has been, as you mentioned, with that extra attack damage, the all-in burst is not really there very early on, but you are able to harass a lot more onto Xiaoxu, which is specifically what the Kennen wants to do in this matchup. And you can see that it is allowed for a lot of pressure to be drawn. However, JunJia now has an opportunity to go here for the grubs.
Yeah, speaking of harassment, that's continuing bot lane as Gala and Vampire have kept the lead they had over Viper and On early on. That said, the JunJia, what he was able to do in the Shun early, some of the early looks, Shun kind of caught back up on this clear, but it was at the cost of both neutral objectives going over to the side of JDG. So while the Dragon was being taken, he got a couple camps away from the Jarvan, caught back up a little bit while the grubs were being taken. He secured that bot side that I was kind of curious to see if Jarvan would continue to pressure or not. But man, taking those 3 grubs, I think that really kind of deflates the power of BLG's comp later on. We didn't really talk about the side lane ability between the Ryze and the Kennen into the Renekton and the Taliyah, but this, for me, is a game where BLG, if these 2 solo lanes get ahead, I think they win in both matchups they're able to find. So, like, both Ryze and Kennen can win into both Renekton and Taliyah. But the 3 grubs being on JDG's side will mean that Bin and Knight can't punish the side lane wins as hard. That being said, Shun looking to punish up top.
Dominus already popped, but it might be just a little bit too few health ticks. Jun goes in with that Crescent Guard. 2 ultimates for a kill onto the enemy top laner. BLG now on the board.
And Bin is destroying early on.
Oh, hold on. JunJia goes in with the Cataclysm. One more minion would be able to take him the tower shot here, but Bin very wisely does not auto JunJia while in that ulti, which means that he does not take any aggro from the turret and will be able to get out alive.
If Cataclysm caught that mage creep that stayed alive, maybe Bin has, burns flash or goes down, but Cataclysm used for nothing. And that top lane lead is pretty concerning now for JDG, because this is something where, Shun was able to convert the kill onto Xiaoxu, but just alone, the war of attrition, given that Bin has sustained in this matchup with the Gunblade, this is only going to get worse for the Renekton as time goes on.
We were asking if Xiaoxu would be able to deliver against Bin like he did against Flandre. So far, not so great, but, of course, counter matchup and still a lot left here in this game and series. The Renekton much more preferential towards team fighting as we get later on into this one. Not to say that the Kennen is not either. JunJia going for a little bit of a gank here on the bottom side as well. Just clear some vision out.
The wise words of Kobe, that TP did suck earlier on. And definitely set
really
up Xiaoxu.
Definitely
set him up for some pain. As we're zoned off a Cannon XP, and that's part of the reason why we see nearly a full 2-level lead in the hands of Bin. Wow.
And he's going to just keep harassing. I mean, this wave is frozen. Just completely.
Was frozen.
And no, it was frozen. Now Bin clears it out. But just another reset. Going to be forced here by Xiaoxu. And once again, we're seeing Bin show off the strength of this champion specifically. He's had a lot of good experiences on it. Now have a bit of a fight in the mid lane. JunJia going to EQ up, Shin going to follow. We have the Dragon about to spawn, and that's why these teams looking a little bit more eager to go for a fight. On flashes forward, lanes that 2-man Pop Blossom, and HongQ is taken down. JunJia will respond with a kill onto On, then uses the Cataclysm and his flash to escape, but in comes the Realm Warp, and BLG are now sending 3 back onto the J4. Shun lands the final blow, and overall, it is a 2-for-1 with Dragon now in the hands of BLG.
That was a really good timer found by BLG because, again, their bot lane, they don't have priorities. So this was Viper and On dropping this wave to make sure they could interact with the play. And I think On being there first and finding that big flash Pop Blossom, that was the difference maker, making sure that BLG had the big enough boom, boom damage early on to make sure that this fight couldn't really be JDG sided. As you can see, JunJia, he's up a level in this matchup, but On being here first is the difference maker. Flashes being used across the board, 3 being used to make sure that HongQ goes down. Frankly, I think that might have been a little bit of an overinvestment. BLG is going to find 2. I think they got gold that they needed from this play. But BLG, they burned everything to make sure that that second dragon went the way of them, and they were not able to pick it up. So I think if they don't get this, you can kind of look at this from JDG being like, man, we made, or BLG decided to burn a TP and 3 flashes to get, what, 2 kills and not get the neutral. If JDG is able to pick up this neutral, that could be big, because those are flashes that Jarvan would really love to punish with the Cataclysm being back up.
And remember, these dragons, everyone that JDG takes, potentially delays the soul for BLG even further. So they'd be very happy if they're able to pick up an early 2-0 lead in that department. But it looks like both sides a little bit wary of going for the objective. JunJia now into the river, going to clear out this control ward, and with Prio bot lane, maybe they can start it up, but even then, still so risky. You never want to, be at the whim of potentially Knight being able to come in and Viper now having his ultimate as well.
Yeah, I do think that look on HongQ, it got both summoner spells out of him, but the fact that didn't connect, that kind of gave away where BLG was at, and we are still in the world where Gala and Vampire, before that last play went down, were already winning this lane. And they actually got a lot of gold from Viper and On walking and see 2 plates were secured by Viper, or Gala, I should say. A third looking to be secured here by Gala. As JDG collapsing on this bot lane, HongQ's here.
So is Knight. So it will be a very even fight in terms of numbers if JDG decide to engage, and with that being under the tower, not a good territory to be an even numbers game. So instead, going for an invade onto the blue buff. Meanwhile, we see Bin taking the top lane tower.
And look, I think this is a bit of that war of attrition that I was hinting at for JDG. BLG burned so much to find those 2 kills that they were able to find in the last series of plays, but it didn't change the bot lane matchup, and it didn't really change the power across the map. So again, when Shun wasn't able to connect with the look on a HongQ, his Viper, man, he held on the barrier there?
He's a bolder man than me. Or maybe maybe it didn't precedent time. I don't know.
All right, well, that was bold. But again, like, that actually made the bot lane matchup worse for Viper and On, because he just secured that Kraken Slayer. So in the sequence where it was Gala with the gold lead, he had the Trinity Force, so it's not just a gold lead, it's a big power difference in terms of what's in your inventory. They turn it into a lot of plays bot side. Meanwhile, top side, Knight looking to be turned.
Yeah, trying to force something onto Knight, but he just pops Ghosts and says, see ya later. So no Weaver's Wall available for a potential fight around the Rift Herald that both sides have already sent resources to. Teleport back to the bottom lane for Xiaoxu signifies that JDG are willing to give this up.
Yeah, and look, if I had to pick to be... Oh, hold on.
Dominus pop in. Already has his Conqueror, though. Has the ulti at his disposal, but Xiaoxu all of a sudden has a lot of HP. There's a Slicing Maelstrom. Bin suddenly does not win the duel. Meanwhile, in the top side, JunJia finds On in a Cataclysm, and it'll even up the kill score at 3 for JDG. And they could be looking for more with Knight and Shun running to underneath their tier 1 turret on the top side. It's going to be JDG in a 3v2 at the moment, starting up the Rift Herald.
Yeah, I'd love to see how JDG found On in the top side. Do want to give credit to Xiaoxu. It's been a tough game for him so far, but going flash for flash, I mean, flash on Kennen, way more valuable than the flash on the Renekton that is behind. And also, I mean, we're also at the spot for me where I prefer to be where JDG is at in this game. I just think the ability for Karma Ezreal to really continue to pressure, they're going to have priority in whatever lane they're in. And keep in mind, the way that the comp wants to work for BLG, it's very much going to be Bin, Knight getting pushed and finding angles. If the Karma Ezreal kind of get too ahead or too strong, Renekton being down on resources is going to have not nearly as much of an impact as Yunara not having the same resources as this game continues. So I feel like the gold allocation so far better for JDG as mid lane ult's traded. HongQ gets out.
But it is the Rift picked up by Bilibili Gaming. Viper, though, getting targeted underneath his mid lane tower. If that True Shot Barrage landed alongside the Essence Flux, could have been a dangerous spot. But the Yunara does have both of her summoner spells, and it's just waiting for the rest of her team to arrive. When becomes Lightning not connecting, and Gala playing very dangerously, but still able to get out unscathed.
Still, so, okay, we're going to see how On was found here. Oh, this really is just the Jarvan brute force. I mean, again, On still flashless, so they were able to find him again. And if we look back at the flashes that were burned by BLG to get those 2 kills on the JDG again, they only got Rift Herald out of it. They didn't get a Dragon. They weren't really able to continue to snowball their lead. On did go down twice in that window since he didn't have Flash. So I feel like looking back at that again, JDG kind of happy with everything that BLG were able to burn. They did a nice job of absorbing it, and I think so far, again, JDG for me, their comp's a little bit easier, a little bit more straightforward to play as we go throughout this game. So I still have them in the advantageous position with those 2 Dragons, with an even gold lead. I just think that as the game goes on, JDG is going to be a little bit easier to execute.
And BLG being in a disadvantaged spot is not something that they've been used to for the playoffs. Once again, just want to reemphasize the differences in the journeys that both of these teams have had to get to the upper finals. It has been all sunshine and rainbows for BLG, while JDG have more than cut their teeth in terms of the games they have had to play. They've gone the distance in all of their series so far. Will that happen again? Well, we're only in game number 1, but it's looking good so far. Only 500 goals separating these 2 teams, and JDG has potential to pick up Soul Point in 5 seconds.
It's, you know, looking at those 2 playoff runs, I just think of the quote, hard times create strong men. And, you know, now we're going to have to see if strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times, you know. Maybe the BLG easy run's going to hurt them going into the day here, Grapes.
Yeah.
Or maybe it could help them.
Easier words for me
strong.
here.
Could be.
Get the Dragon started up here. By Bilibili. HongQ throws at the Weaver's Wall. It actually separates On and Shun from the rest of the team, so giving a little bit of time for JDG to strike. In goes JunJia, and he steals the Dragon away. That's Soul Point in for JDG. Flashes on out and will survive. But the Pop Blossom for On is able to find 2, and Gala is shut down. Xiaoxu is next. And so it'll be 2 kills for BLG, but JD Gaming get themselves their 3rd Drake.
Yeah, it's a Hextech Soul Point, so very valuable for JDG. That said, BLG getting much-needed gold in their pockets. Do want to replay that one, because some of the poke that connected early on I thought was pretty good for JDG. The Weaver's Wall into that True Shot barrage from Gala actually gave them a health bar advantage, but the flash from On did create a good engage for BLG to follow up on, and Gala, a little bit too far forward in that fight, was found.
Ooh, HongQ. A greedy reset might be punished here. Knight gonna be able to flash forward and land that overload. And now that's 3 straight kills here for Bilibili, and the gold lead ballooning to 3K.
Aaron's up. Think BLG still have to reset, so they can't look for it, but a mistake there from HongQ. Maybe.
Looks like,
okay.
Yeah, On's fine. He's fine.
I mean, if JunJia rips another EQ, On's dead on my screen. That was the tension we were waiting for. But yeah, I'm keeping my eyes on Gala in this replay. The steal from JunJia, very sound. Looks like the smite was early from Shun. And then Xiaoxu.
Some miscommunication here, it looks like.
Well, it's not just a miscommunication. It's that Gala had a Lee Syndrome moment on Ezreal with the E forward. So we E forward into the Pop Blossom Flash and into the Cannon Ult. I don't think it's going to happen again from Gala, Grapes. I hope not.
I hope not either. I mean, this guy, such a great team fighter as well. If he can get there, not his brightest moment necessarily. On pops the Pop Blossom preemptively, and now HongQ says, all right, man, I'll go in knowing you don't have that ability. It's going to be an easy kill here for JDG's mid laner. On has been having such a good game until he made a crucial error at potentially a devastating time.
Yeah, you know, we all love bouncing on trampolines. I don't think that was the right time for On to do it. Wanted to maybe get a few other people in his wake. That said, support falls will be Baron Control going over to JDG. As they're going to try and turn this into the top lane outer turret, which has a long way to go. So HongQ only able to get a couple plates for himself. That will feel good as he works his way towards the Rylai's Crystal Scepter. No action coming. I mean, if you're JDG, you really just have to play for the upcoming Dragon. I think that there's really no reason to start Baron and put yourself at risk of a potential Slicing Maelstrom Pop Blossom combo from the side of BLG.
Yeah, I mean, you see the lead that Bin has been able to generate as well. 2,500. Even though Gala's died a couple times, made that a little bit closer between him and Viper, Bin has really been able to maintain his advantage. He picks up the Proto Belt for the double Hex Tech items, Heimerdinger customer #1, the Hex Toys, whatever you want to call it.
That's the kind of gold lead you secure when you do raid the warehouse of Heimerdinger.
Yes.
You know, it looks like Bin stole it and saved the money.
It has a little extra wand that he found on the side as well. Doesn't know what it does just yet, but
he was able to fit it in his back pocket as he walked out with the 2 big pieces. You know, poor Heimerdinger. He is way too nice to deserve Bin raiding his warehouse like this.
Have a conversation. On's played some Heimerdinger in his past. Maybe we see that later on in this series as well. If this really goes off the rails, I feel like we have to get to like Game 7 of Fearless for that to happen in the current meta state. HongQ in some trouble, gets stunned up by the Pop Blossom, and yeah, this Talia is just dead. Ooh. Knight's going to be able to land the final blow, and JDG tried to defend him, but it's going to be disaster. Bin goes in with a slicing Maelstrom, and 2 more die for free. A teleport from Xiaoxu is all too late, as BLG in a 5v2 are going to have an easy time securing the Baron after what an incredibly foolish play by JDG.
Yeah, I kind of need to go back and see exactly how that was found by BLG. HongQ being found in the river, I can understand. They're trying to shift power into bot, but Gala being found like that as well. Bin had such a crazy angle where he didn't even need to burn the flash on this play. As HongQ...
So this is the first bad play. But then
yeah.
watch the bot lane walk up thinking that they can try to salvage this in some way.
Yeah, they just take the short way, and they don't have control over this side. You can see JunJia was kind of trying to connect or trying to control bot side. I think that's why HongQ was shifting down and not going around the wall, trying to go through the embankment rush. That's what opens up the slicing Maelstrom from Bin. No flash needed, which is imperative for BLG because it means they have it for this upcoming dragon spawn, because this is Hextech Soul if JDG are able to secure this. So very important that BLG pick up dragons from here on out, because Hextech Soul can change the pace of any game in favor of the team that secures it.
JDG can right their wrongs with one good team fight, maybe even just one good press of the smite key by JunJia to secure themselves the first soul of this best of 5. Bin uses the Hex Gate. It's going to be able to cut HongQ off, who is suddenly very behind here in this game.
HongQ not
Looks
spotted.
like they're going to spot Bin out right now. Seismic Shove does not connect, but here comes the Realm Warp, and On able to barely dodge away from that ability. In goes JunJia, but it's a little bit too late, and the Weaver's Wall is going to cut him off. JunJia now has to flash away, and that's going to be free dragon and maybe even more here for BLG. That is the first kill given over to Bin. He flashes back into the pit for safety. One more Seismic Shove will mean a shutdown gets picked up onto Shun, but BLG are happy to deny the soul.
You got the soul, also kind of win the fight. I think that mid outer is going to go down in favor of JDG. That said, Bin just used the Baron empowered recall.
On doesn't use the flash and now could be in some trouble. HongQ is still able to drop. You thought that maybe On was going to go for a bigger ulti than that, but he gets the prize nonetheless.
Yeah, actually kind of surprised about that one. I don't think they have the numbers to warrant the flash Pop Blossom, but again, finding HongQ. HongQ's been found on more than one occasion now in this mid game. That's his 4th death. It feels like he's been picked out 3 times, really, Grapes, and they have been finds based on Knight and On syncing up between, I mean, even the Realm Warp attempt to get Nico into that backline, definitely something that BLG could look for later, because they can use that to also portal in a slicing Maelstrom. So I guess more ways to really find yourself on top of JDG, which is what BLG's comp is going to need to continue to do as this game moves forward.
Man, an interesting start to this series. Don't know if it's a fun one, but it's been a wild one.
I mean, if I could draw on my screen right now, I think the biggest shift in the last 5 minutes has been that gold lead between Viper and Gala. Because keep in mind, the early story of this game for JDG, it was trading that lead bot for the lead top that was on Bin versus Xiaoxu. But they had the same lead bot of having Gala have that advantage over Viper. Viper's yet to fall in this game, and Viper is now on that 3-item mark, where he has the Infinity Edge on this Yunara, and that upfront damage you're able to put down off the rip once you hit R. It's big, and it really complements what BLG's comp wants to do. So I think Gala lacking that lead that he had earlier on, that has hurt JDG in the last few fights.
You think about the superstar that Viper has been throughout his career, whether it was with EDG, with Hanwha, any other team that he's been a part of in his illustrious career. And a lot of the time, he's the main character. But joining BLG, this perceived super team in the LPL, he doesn't always have to be the main carry, the guy who's getting all the resources. He can sit back, he can farm up, he can get to it back to an even state after being harassed in lane for the first 10 minutes of the game. and now suddenly leading with a 3-item Yunara. That's kind of the player that Viper has been. Hasn't been always the flashiest, but it is a solid AD carry nonetheless.
Yeah, I do want to take inventory real quick. We have some choices being made by players in terms of itemization. One being Ezreal opting for the Tenacity and the Omnivamp with the Endless Hunger instead of the Spear of Shojin. So a few less Qs heading out, but going to have a few more defensive tools in his back pocket that will help against Kennen, Ryze, and Nico in terms of that Tenacity, as well as the Sustain to try and make sure he has good conditions coming into these fights, or just staying through it. Also, HongQ with the Verdant Barrier, so looking to be going for that 3rd item Banshee's Veil. It is worth noting that little heavy magic damage from BLG, given that Yunara has Summoner Kit and they have Nico as well. So we are seeing a really heavy magic resist presence from JDG, which, hey, that could set up Viper for a big fight, or could set up Xun for a big fight, because the defenses are being built to allocate towards Bin and Knight and the power that they have on the Rift right now.
BLG in a good position, continuously in JDG's jungle over the last few minutes. They have the potential to get another Drake in about 80 seconds. Baron up in 60. So they're using all of this pressure, all this priority to make sure their vision game is in a good spot and making sure that JDG is always going to be seen when they go for an engage.
Yeah, again, if I'm BLG have the control right now, they should prioritize the Dragon. The last thing you want to do in this game is give away a Hextech Soul to a Karma Ezreal, who has a very easy job of applying said Hextech Soul to. That soul can just, it can ruin a game. If you are a team that, in this case now for BLG, you have that 6k gold lead, you have the gold in your pockets necessary to make sure that these, you know, one-shot compositions, the shotgun comp that BLG has, and that they've executed upon pretty well so far, can continue to find the one-shots as these luxury items will start to come in for JDG as this game goes forward.
As those extended fights start to go,
yep.
You know, how is JDG going to be able to respond to that? Will that extra MR for HongQ be able to keep him alive against an ultimate from Bin or Knight or even On?
Yeah, and for BLG, I'm a little bit surprised. They've really taken over the Baron side.
They're going Baron, yeah.
I mean, if you're JDG, do you just trade this? Just trade. Yeah. Again, for BLG, I feel like this is almost an unnecessary risk from them.
I mean, there's no way they get to this in time. It's just going to burn down 5 members of JDG here for the Hextech Dragon. Weaver's Wall going to cut off Xun's advancements as well. So the soul is secured, but BLG want to try to fight in the meantime. They go for the Wind Becomes Lightning onto Xiaoxu, slowed down by the bolas of Viper as well. Xiaoxu going to be able to pop the Dominus, but is going to get sniped down by the Transcendent Laser. And Viper gets on the board first for Bilibili. It's a 45 on the map with Baron buff in their hands. So they're going to try to use this to push the gold lead as much as possible for the cost of the soul.
Yeah. How much can BLG get in the next couple of minutes with the Baron on their backs? And is it going to be worth a Hextech Soul? My default blanket statement is no. I do not like the trade that BLG just made. I think Hextech Soul, the ability for Ezreal Karma to apply this is way too easy. The slows that can connect, you have Rylai's on HongQ, but it makes it easier for Gala or Vampire to connect these big skill shots as the game continues to move forward. And like, look at Knight here.
Look at that.
Yeah, like his ability to space to just show his own player's skill on the clicks, where these guys are all supremely talented. It's so much harder against Hextech Soul. And I just, again, like, we're sitting up here like the one mistake you can't make right now is BLG is giving away this soul. It gives JDG the exact path back into the game that they want, that they're hoping for. And so far, I think the two
Hold on, Xun.
Oh yeah, hold on.
He's very low. Cataclysm is going to come out. Xun already used his flash, and he's going to go down. So another over-aggressive play for BLG in the enemy jungle. They're able to get the bot lane tier 2 for Bin, but now they really have the rest of their Baron play stifled.
I mean, look, it's been 2 inner turrets secured so far by BLG. They have an 8k gold lead. I think that going into this, they had a 6k gold lead before this sequence of plays. I would rather have the 6k gold lead and not be facing the Hextech Soul than facing the Hextech Soul the 8k gold lead. That's no argument, no discussion from me on where I'd prefer. And I'm just so surprised that, again, I feel like BLG kind of walked into their own trap card. They had 5 minutes to see on their screens that Baron was going to spawn 20 seconds before the Hextech Soul, and to try and play around that. And the way to play around that was like, okay, guys, it's 20 seconds gap. We can definitely do both, right? They weren't even close.
Not even close. Even if they started up on spawn at the perfect timing, JDG were more than happy to full send it for the Soul, and they're going to be happy they did it for the remainder of the first game of this upper final. It's the advantageous, poke you're going to be able to get, the extra slows, utility. It's going to be very important, especially with a composition that wants to play these fights in an extended fashion.
I feel like JDG and BLG both signed up and said, we're going shopping. BLG decided to go Louis Vuitton. JDG decided to go to Goodwill, and JDG found the much more valuable item. And they got way more bang for their buck.
They found the Louis Vuitton bag in the Goodwill. Sometimes
they found the vintage. They found the vintage one. Or the person was like, wait, why did this guy throw away a $3,000 bag? And they didn't know at the time. JDG did.
And it maybe even appreciates in value as the game goes on, right? So there's a lot of opportunities here. Obviously, we're speaking as if this game is still close. It is, but important to remember that BLG still in the gold lead by about 8,000, and half of that is in the hands of Bin, finishing off the death cap once returning from base. That is a very strong cannon. If he gets into a 5-man fight, if he dives the back line, JDG are still going to have problems, Hextech Soul or not.
Bin could end the game with one fight. There is only one GA up. The Banshee's Veil will help HongQ a bit. But again, you can't really keep Kennen out. And Vampire didn't opt to take the exhaust, so whatever ult Bin throws down will be big. I am a little surprised if Vampire didn't go for exhaust. I think that you need a way to deal with Kennen later on in these fights. It's going to be every man for themselves. It's going to be like, showing your wife that there's a rat in the apartment and seeing how they react is going to be how JDG is going to have to react to this Kennen. Just pray they can get on top of the chair before the rat runs under them or takes them out,
I don't really understand where you're going with that analogy, but it worked at the end, I think.
We're fishing a bit. I know that we aren't fighting until these monster objectives spawn again, Graves. We got some time to go.
We are waiting. We're approaching, I think, one of the longer games that BLG have played in the playoffs so far. Again, their road has been so simple, so one-sided, but JDG, despite being down 8K, still absolutely putting up a fight. JunJia has been relentless in his aggression, leading the team in kills at the moment, and they've gotten the game state to a point where they're going to have to flip around these two major neutral objectives again in the next 90 seconds.
The setup for JDG gets made so much easier by the fact that they have access to Hextech Soul. And look at the line that JDG have drawn. I love the control word placement. They're giving up Baron control. Elder is more valuable than Baron. If you handshake these objectives, it's really hard to fight another team that has Elder because, of course, when the dragon, goes rar, it's kind of like the fat lady singing on the rift. Things are over when you get Elder Dragon. So, I just, without bot lane priority, without wards being behind JDG, it really is going to be, we're going to have to keep track of, do Bin and On stack on top of Knight, and how creative do we get with these realm warps and who we send in? Speaking of creative,
oh, they could go for the big carry right here. That is Bin Splash and Ultimate being used 30 seconds before the Elder Dragon spawns. BLG know that a mistake has been made, and they need to try to punish this push coming forward from a JDG. Vampire looking for some poke. Shun lands the Wind Becomes Lightning onto JunJia, but Gala has now arrived, and a full 5-on-5 has emerged. Remember, no Slicing Maelstrom available for Bin. As JunJia goes forward onto On, he pops the clone to make sure he escapes, but now it is JDG with control around the Elder Dragon pit. JunJia continuing. He lands the Cataclysm here on and forces another Summoner spell. JDG continuing to push the pace.
And Gala's just holding the line. Viper, BLG cannot walk into the river because if they eat the Hextech Soul empowered Mystic shots, it's tough. It's so hard for BLG to walk in, and the tools that they have to flank are gone. JDG got the waves in control, took away Bin's Slicing Maelstrom, which is still not off cooldown, and On's flashless.
And now the Elder Dragon has been started up. Shun is already very low, and Bin has that ultimate about to come on to cooldown. He uses the Hex Gate to get over, and this would be a big fight to use that Slicing Maelstrom. When will it arrive? Crescent Guard comes down. The Elder is flipped and secured by JDG. Already the Elder has procced, and the Guardian Angel is about to be expired onto Shun. He will go down, and JD Gaming win another flip, and they will claim the Elder for themselves.
JunJia takes it. Shun not able to secure the Elder versus his own team. And for BLG, we came into this series, Graves, saying that we felt like this was the first test they were going to face in the LPL playoffs, going up against JDG, a team that has a lot more might than what BLG has faced so far in their lower bracket run. And this first test, they've not passed at all. They failed it because they got the basic rules of League macro wrong, which is Baron for Hextech Soul. What do you take? I'm taking the Hextech Soul every time. And you can see the gold difference. It doesn't really matter as the setup was a lot better for JDG because the Karma, the Ezreal poke added up. Yes, it came down to a flip. If BLG wins that flip, maybe they get something, but it still is a flashless Kennen sitting over the wall. Slicing Maelstrom would not have been able to interact with that last fight because JDG took the time. They took 2 minutes straight to make sure that mid and bot wave were in their favor, that the control wards were in the right place where they were to make sure that the Rat and the Nico couldn't find themselves. We find the angle or get themselves behind JDG, get the setup that BLG needs to come back and win this game. As JDG, it wasn't the prettiest game, but they stuck to the basic rules of League, and that says if you get Hextech Soul, your team's going to have a pretty big advantage throughout the game.
BLG have a 5,000 gold lead, but that's feeling like Monopoly money at this point. JD Gaming with the double buff power of the Elder and the Baron for the next minute and change. And you can see the pressure that they're able to give on to Bilibili. Now they're in the enemy base, and Bin has a flank angle underneath this mid lane inhibitor turret that has already gone down. The Nexus Tower is under fire. The first one is going to fall first. Second inhibitor down. Bin has to go now or the game will just end. And he is with the Slicing Maelstrom. They'll be able to nearly take down HongQ, but he flashes away and will not fall. JDG were down gold, but they were not down in spirit. They get a triple kill for Gala and claim game 1 of this best of 5.
Who needs a lot of gold when you got the dragons in your back? The Hextech Soul and the Elder Dragon made sure that game was going in JDG's favor as they did a better job of securing that bot lane priority, stacking up those early dragons, and making sure the win went into their hands.
What a way to kick this series off. It looked like it was going to be a BLG win. You know, they win a couple of these team fights. They swing the game open. Bin is like maybe the strongest Kennen I've ever seen in history, but he just never was able to use his ultimate to the greatest effect. And the macro from BLG is certainly something that we're going to have to put our magnifying glasses on for the remainder of this best of 5 and maybe even the remainder of this playoffs, as JDG just able to outplay them in every front. Obviously Tabe coming in as the coach for the draft, but certainly helping them with some of these other decisions as well.
Yeah, BLG did not pass their first test. Again, this was a game where they played well enough to win. The biggest difference was just the Baron for the Soul trade. That's a game state where BLG, they have a 6k gold lead. They have control. It's a JDG that were really struggling to make their way onto the map. And you chose to use that control for a Baron instead of Hextech Soul. That's a massive mistake that any teams can make. I mean, I'm flashing back like through my head of Dom being like, Baron for Soul? Like watching like his own team do that last year with C9. I mean, that's kind of how I felt watching BLG make the same mistake. I think that's a great call out you made, Two Grapes. Bin couldn't really use that lead effectively on the Kennen. I think JDG did a nice job of trying to milk some tools out of him, not just before the Elder fight, but knowing that, hey, we don't have a way to deal with Kennen in the team fight. We might have to deal with him before in the skirmish. That was a creative solution from JDG, and BLG didn't have an answer for it.
Yeah, and all of it starts with JunJia here for JDG on this Jarvan pick. From minute 1, permanently invading Shun, able to get that first kill, and then even as the game got later on and the Jarvan becomes less of a damage threat and more of a utility champion, he's always able to throw out those EQs, be a threat towards the opposition, and we saw it most notably in the bottom lane onto Bin, where he burned both his flash and his ulti. That created a massive tempo advantage for JDG, and BLG were never able to really find a way back in after that. They lose that fight around the Elder, they get Baron buff against them, and by the time you got both of those buffs and the Soul in the hands of JDG with an Ezreal composition, just really had nowhere to go from there.
Yeah, I'm surprised for so many reasons why we took Baron for Soul. It feels like BLG, you know, sometimes I say in this league that they get away with a lot more BS than they do internationally, and that hurts them when they go international. JDG's not letting them get away with that one domestically. They're making sure that gets punished in the end, and JDG found the deserved win. I'd say a close game 1. I struggle with the decisions that BLG made late, Grapes, but I still recognize that was a competitive one, and BLG, we expected them to be tested. The least likely result we had for tonight was 3 games going to either team and having it be a short night for us. I think game 1 definitely built a little bit of confidence in that, even if JDG made much better decisions later on in that game, none of them to win.
hopefully an allegory for how the rest of this game is going to go. As you take a look at some of those damage numbers, the gold graph, etc., JDG never led past the 10-minute mark in terms of gold. They ended up down 300 as the Nexus exploded. Just goes to show the power of the composition once we got to the late game, and also the power of making smart decisions around the map with the champions that you have on Summoner's Rift.
Yeah, I'm sure that Xiaoxu wraps up that game, type top diff, and just won next.
I've been there, man.
Just requeued, you know, just how it goes. Yeah, I mean, a very interesting game one, I think, for a lot of reasons. Again, core macro guys, there's a reason why we've talked so much about the dragons, why you've heard so much about dragon control, but you've probably heard casters from every region talking about, do you control the banana brush or not, going into those dragons, because dragons are still really what dictate this game at the moment. Soul feels like a game ender, and if that's not confidence enough for a game ender, well, Elder is the true game ender. And we really saw both of that in this game, as JDG's dragon priority was what paid off. And I think that by the dissect that game a bit, Grapes, still really surprised why BLG didn't ban out Karma. I have no problem with blinding Nico, especially for On, but not taking away Karma from that. I really did sign up their bot lane for a lot of punishment early on, and did help JDG net that early lead they had even before BLG turned this one around.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe this is the wrong way to put it, but if your Karma is not making any drastic mistakes and you don't really notice her too much in a game of League of Legends, I feel like that's generally a good sign for how Karma is acting in the game. So with that being said, I think we can agree, good game for Vampire on this pick, and had a good opportunity to play it alongside Gala's Ezreal, who also was able to navigate a lot of these fights very well. This was not one of them, as BLG potentially had the opportunity to blow the game open from this point, but then it was mistake after mistake. They are able to not claim this dragon either, and then this just becomes a very odd situation all throughout.
This was the one they picked up, but like the fight was still kind of weird. Just because, again, I really feel like I'm surprised that we never saw a scenario during one of these setups where Bin or On were on top at night for the Realm Warp. I'm kind of waiting for that. Like, Bin taking the portal over and being stuck on this side of the wall with no slicing Maelstrom. Like, this should be the scenario where as BLG, you're using Fog, you have a control ward in that banana brush. Put Kennen, put Nico in that circle, throw out a Realm Warp, just create chaos, see what happens against JDG. Like, I think that this solution from BLG and Bin was okay. You're still fighting against an Elder. This is still going to be a hard way to end the game, but the fact that we didn't see any Realm Warps into Pop Blossoms, into Slicing Maelstroms, maybe a missed opportunity from BLG, because that is another way that you can create chaos and get on top of JDG, which, of course, very much what BLG's comp is looking to do in this game.
Not able to do it, though. And so they pick up their first loss of the Split 1 playoff bracket here in LPL 2026. 2 more games for JDG would get them back to international play for the first time in quite some time. They would be very happy with that result. Surely want more than that, though. Championship in their grasp, in their sights. But there's still a lot more work to be done throughout the duration of this series. You know, we saw Tabe have a great time against BLG at times last year as a member of Anyone's Legend, and looks like he was able to pull a few tricks from his old book when he was with that other team.
I think the story of BLG last year is that they were very much the team that represented Brawn being their greatest strength coming out of the LPL, whereas AL were the team that really had the brains behind it and a lot of the strategy. I don't know if I saw that fully from this iteration of JDG, but what we did see from them is this mid-jungle duo, they really like to play fast. We know that JunJia is a very good Jarvan player and did play a very good Jarvan game that game. I really liked how he invaded Shun, found a great timer early on, did a great job of playing around his bot lane, and a well-deserved MVP for him as we wrap up game 1.
He played fast, so the rest of the team could play slow. And I think that's the best way to kind of describe what JunJia was able to do on that Jarvan in this first game, and allowing them to pick up yet another win over BLG. Remember, they swept the season series in the regular part of the year. Could it be another victory going towards JDG or will BLG have their revenge and make it all the way to the grand finals? We'll have to wait and see, but before we head to a break, I want to give a quick shout out to all of our fans on LPL English, particularly those on Coffee. And if you would like to support LPL English, consider becoming a Coffee member. It is the best way to support the LPL English project, with the vast majority of your contributions going directly to the show. A lot of your initial payments will go into upgrading the broadcast, like this beautiful new graphic that you see here, but a huge bulk of it also pays the on-air talent and content creators that are on this show every day. You can subscribe to our Coffee. The link is in the chat, and you can unlock perks like early access to content and the ability to ask interview questions for our unique on-site interviews. Thank you so much for supporting us over on Coffee, and we'll be right back after this.